Well, again, I don't think they said they agreed that. What they said is that the isotopic makeup of this material is identical to material that we have.
Right.
I don't think the Pakistanis have admitted that they've sold this stuff to Iran.
Okay, so they don't come right out and say it.
Shouldn't. I mean, it was perfectly legal for them to sell it. It was perfectly legal for Iran to buy it. But
right.
You know.
Well, it's one of those non-answer answers where we know that the question is satisfied anyway.
That's right.
Right. And now, but a lot of these questions come from the so-called stolen laptop, which
okay,
has...
now that's the third category.
Okay.
The first category was the safeguards agreement. That's fine. Nothing. That's great. There's nothing to report there. Second thing is the work plan is basically, that's all resolved. Now comes the stolen laptop stuff. And here the report is really funny. Not funny, but I don't know what you do. What happened is that this alleged stolen laptop, alleged to be stolen and somehow or another obtained by Israeli intelligence or somebody like that, and then maybe went to the Germans and then finally to the United States. I don't know.
Well, let me interrupt you for just one moment to point out that on March 1st, 2008, at antiwar.com, we published an article by Gareth Porter from IPS News, who wrote, Iran nuke laptop data came from terror group, and that's his sources are the Germans. They say that the laptop came from the NCRI, which is the political front of the communist terrorist cult, the Mujahideen al-Khalq, and the NCRI and the MEK have been identified by Scott Ritter and others in the past as fronts for Israeli intelligence.
That's right, and he also specifically says in there in a footnote or something that there are suspicions, although you can't prove it, that the Israelis are really behind this. But at any rate, that's in that article.
Right. Well, it's important to point out that nobody's ever proven that this thing actually came from this dead Iranian scientist they claim it came from, right?
As far as I know, Gareth knows more about that than I do. But at any rate, what happened is that the United States, who has possession of this, apparently showed stuff on it to the IAEA in an electronic form, and that the IAEA then proceeded to confront the Iranians with, at best, a secondhand version of this stuff in electronic form. What that means to me is that the Iranians, as of yet, have not ever actually seen the so-called documents that are included on that stolen laptop. And so they're being asked to say, okay, well, what about this? And here is a critical statement in Baradai's latest report. It should be emphasized, however, that the agency has not detected the actual use of nuclear material in connection with the alleged studies. Any of them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What that means is that all of this stuff is none of the IAEA's business. None of it.
All right, well, now, this is something that you say sometimes in your articles, is that if this or that is happening, this is really outside the mandate of the IAEA. The UN doesn't really have any authority to tell the IAEA to do this or that. Is that just a technical argument? I mean, the War Party would say, let's just stick to the facts, and whether the IAEA is out of their jurisdiction even going down these roads or not, aren't these indications that something nefarious is going on over there?
Yes and no. In this particular case, the UN Security Council has told El Baradei, actually it's told Iran, that it would be a good thing all around if they were to satisfy him that there was nothing to any of this. Now, it's none of El Baradei's business as a Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. However, the IAEA is a UN agency, and if the UN Security Council directs El Baradei to do this, then that's all the authority he needs. But in the letter, note verbal, sent by the Iranians back on March 28th of this year, they give chapter and verse about how the IAEA Board of Governors should never have forwarded this set of recommendations to the UN Security Council because there was no basis in their charter and in their bylaws for doing it, because the Director General had continued to report that there was no diversion of declared or undeclared materials, and hence the IAEA was corrupt in doing that. They violated their own bylaws and statute and everything else. It was illegal, in other words, under international law. Furthermore, the UN Security Council then proceeded, at the urging of John Bolton, to disregard their procedures for what they were to do in the event that they had gotten a report that there was a potential threat to the peace in the region because some material had been diverted to a military purpose, because no material had been diverted to a military purpose. But what they should have done is, if Bolton had made this complaint, the UN Security Council should have met, and they should have concluded under Article 39 that there was no threat to the peace in the region. That should have been the end of it. Instead, Bolton got them to go around their own procedures and to declare that its failure to suspend its safeguarded programs indefinitely, end them, that Bolton demanded that they stop, and they refused to do it, and therefore that constituted a threat to the peace in the region, which, of course, is ridiculous. If safeguarded programs are a threat to peace, then, boy, howdy, we have got real problems right here in River City.
Yeah, well, it really does seem like a shame, going back, I guess, to the beginning in the media on all this. Is it just the case, you think, Gordon, that nuclear technology is so complicated and international treaties are so complicated that these reporters just can't bother to get it right? I mean, I don't know how many emails I've gotten from you criticizing the reporters at the New York Times and the Post and other places where I can't tell if these guys are liars or if they just cannot understand the topic that they're writing about.
Well, in the particular case I just mentioned of George John, Jahn, of the Associated Press, who signed his article, in his first report on this most recent report by El Baradei, he said that the Associated Press had obtained a copy. Now, usually these guys say, well, according to diplomats with access to these reports, who told us all this stuff on condition that we not tell anybody who they were, because they're prohibited by their oath of office and all that sort of thing to tell us these kind of things. And then they proceed to then, sometimes with a byline, sometimes it just says Reuters or Associated Press or AFP or something like that. But in this particular case, the very first one of these I saw, it was byline George John, Associated Press, and he said in his first paragraph, or right up near the beginning, that the Associated Press had obtained a copy of it. So that's an example of where I say that he could not conceivably have written that article, that report that he wrote under his name, if he had even glanced through, skimmed through the actual report.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And by the way, anybody can go to thestressblog.com or to antiwar.com/blog, and if you find the entry for today's show, you'll see the word report, IAEA report, is highlighted red. Click there, and that's the PDF file. It's available at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace website. And you're right. I mean, I got to admit, I only glanced at it, and I got the same impression that you got on intense study, and that was, it seems to me like El Baradei is acquitting the Iranians pretty much across the board here.
Again, there are three reports. First is the IAEA report. That's his business. They're not guilty there. No evidence whatsoever, no indication that there's anything wrong with them as far as their safeguards agreement is concerned. Second thing is that in this report and the one previous, he basically says, well, we've essentially resolved all the work plan issues, the issues I had. Then there's this business that the Security Council asked him to look into, okay, which was, the smoking laptop stuff and things like that. And there he says, well, I don't know, the Iranians say that we haven't actually shown them the real data, but as best they can tell, they say, you know, first of all, there's no indication that any of this stuff or most of this stuff has anything to do with Iran. It doesn't say anything on here about Iran or anything in many cases.